With Cardano rallying up to close to 70 cent, most recently we've seen a lot more eyeballs on ADA, and rightfully so. In today's video we're going to be jumping down into the world of Cardano, reviewing what's been going on and where I think things are heading next. And as I get into today's video, if you do find it useful and informative, smash that like button. I do appreciate that. If you are new to the channel, why not go ahead and subscribe? Right, let's roll that intro and get right down into it. So Cardano has been on fire recently. With that recent move up above 67 cents, we have of course seen some profits being taken off the table. And again, this isn't unusual, this isn't irregular, this is actually quite a positive sign. When you start to see some profit being taken off the table, you know traders are actively looking at Cardano. And with a 13% pullback that we've seen at the moment, to me this makes me wonder whether or not we're going to start seeing more positions start layering in and another surge to the upside. The price action has been very, very interesting for Cardano, with its recent movements do look very impulsive, yet we have failed to hit those impulsive trigger points. This to me tells me that we have seen good growth, but we can't be looking at this as a sustainable move to the upside just yet. Anything above 70 cent is going to be very interesting, and I do think there's going to be a potential move up towards $1 for Cardano. The question just simply becomes, is it going to happen here in 2023, or is it going to be early 2024? And for the most part, I think that we're going to see it probably in early part of 2024. With the recent 13% drop in ADA, I don't think we've finished this correction just yet. I still see this with a small move down a little bit further on the smaller time frames, probably over the next couple of days, targeting out approximately 58 cents, something to that effect. We already wicked down to about 50 cent on the way up, and that's pretty interesting in itself as well. But I do see us with a bit more of a collapse, or a bit more of a move to the downside towards 58 cent. And then from there, I think we're going to rally back up again, taking out 70 cent as the local high. And I do think what that's going to do is it's going to allow for more profit to be generated by the traders and have that profit taken off the table. Now, if we can get to $1, that's fantastic, but I wouldn't be holding out and waiting for that to happen personally, because at a macro level, Cardano does look like it needs to see a much bigger correction, much bigger than what we've seen so far on the charts. So although we've seen some really good growth in Cardano, and it is rightfully deserved in my opinion, in terms of as far as ecosystems are, Cardano is well designed. It takes time to develop there. We've been through this many times already, but ultimately I think this is looking pretty positive for Cardano overall, and I think the future is very, very bright. Although we've had this kind of short-term move to the upside over the last few weeks, and it's been great, we can't look at the macro level charts of the weekly and the monthly and have the same level of confidence to think that we aren't going to be having a major corrective position here for ADA. Ultimately, it's the same with Bitcoin, and it's the same with many altcoins. We are going to be looking for a larger correction. Now, that larger correction is a huge opportunity. It isn't something to be afraid of. It's not something to be mocked. It's not something to kind of ignore or pretend doesn't exist. Essentially, if we do see this larger corrective move, which I am kind of anticipating, back down towards 30 cent, which seems crazy, I know. This isn't something that happens overnight. It's not a flash in the pan. This is something that would happen over a sustained number of weeks. In the same way that you've seen this growth to the upside from 22 cent, you would see the same but on the way down, but finding support at key levels as well. So from a technical and analytical point of view, in terms of understanding how price movements work, we are looking for a very corrective move back down to kind of the low 30s, high 20s. And we'll be very lucky, in my opinion, if we can get down lower than 30 cent, but nonetheless, there are some technical targets there. And so when we can see this data in the charts, this is a huge opportunity. It's not something that we kind of want to ignore. It's not something that we want to kind of shy away from, because if you do that, then you're going to potentially miss out on dollar cost averaging at some fantastic prices for ADA. There will, of course, be retail investors that never learn and will basically just call it a scam because they lost money buying the top and selling the bottom and all that kind of stuff. That will happen every single time because you are not educated enough to necessarily see what's going to unfold, right? And so one of the key things here is that retail will never change from that point of view. At least newbies or new people who come into the space never seem to learn that. Ultimately, seasoned investors who have been in through multiple cycles, such as Chris and myself, we can see these things happening time and time again. Specifically, if you're actually, data driven and you have a mindset to understand large data sets and you can dive down into the world of on-chain analytics and things like that, or even just historical price movements, when you have big fundamental macro events happening at an economic level, such as the Federal Reserve pivoting, i.e. they reduce their interest rates, and what that impact that has on the stock market and the crypto market historically. And when we are kind of staring down the barrel of another third pivot, then we understand potentially what that might do to the cryptocurrency market. So being heavily overbought on weekly timeframes, monthly timeframes is an opportunity. It isn't anything more than that, in my opinion. And of course, I've been through it a number of times already. I think the future for Cardano is very, very bright. In the same way that we see with Bitcoin, and a lot of people will agree with this with Bitcoin, but will completely forget about it when it comes to Cardano, or just completely overlook it because it doesn't fit what they've been told about ADA. But for Bitcoin, we know that the supply is very, very important. It's very small, right? And when that supply shrinks and demand increases, we see price appreciation. It's the same for Cardano's ADA, right? Obviously, there's a total different number of coins in circulating supply, right? We are talking about 4.5 billion total supply for ADA and 21 million for Bitcoin. But obviously, the prices are relative to the supplies as well. And the reason I bring this up is a lot of people out there are willing to kind of say $100,000 Bitcoin, 200,000, 500,000, $1 million Bitcoin. People are more than happy to acknowledge that as a possibility based on the supply-demand imbalances that get created from a Bitcoin spot ETF. Okay, now with that, it's very important to understand that everything in the world comes down to supply and demand imbalances when there's a price associated with something. And so when we take a look at what's going to cause Bitcoin's moves to the upside, the logic that flows is that the exchanges have insufficient supply to deal with an influx of demand. Okay, a Bitcoin spot ETF using Coinbase is going to be a huge catalyst for a decrease in supply whilst increasing the demand. Thus, price moves up very rapidly where they target out, 100,000, 200,000, $1 million Bitcoin. The same thing can be applied to Cardano's ADA when you take a look at what's shrinking the supply and what demand is going to come on in. We can already see a huge appetite for institutional level investors in getting involved in ADA. We can see this within the on-chain analytics. And of course, we can acknowledge that TVL is growing at an exponential rate with nearly 1 billion ADA being locked up. Currently, I think we were looking at this the other day at 730 million ADA being locked up, right? Which is a very significant amount of supply, basically, that's no longer available for purchase on the exchanges. And so when we have a look at all this data, it gives us that huge positivity to understand that the supply demand is going to be imbalanced and we are going to see price reacting accordingly. Now, for the most part, we haven't got the demand part there yet, and that's part of the equation that is to come in the future, in my humble opinion. We can see that a lot of work is happening with Cardano's ecosystem, lots of dApps being built on it, and of course that is no small feat in itself. Over 1,000 dApps are being built, and that is going to increase and drive such huge demand for ADA over time. And it's really these things that we're investing in, right? We're seeing the potential of what is to unfold. We're not waiting for things to happen. We are basically seeing what is being built. We're seeing and talking to teams, and we're understanding what drives that price movement. And ultimately, I think Cardano is very well placed to be a very, very good performer, if not one of the best performers in that next bullish market. So I wanted to kind of summarize this video up a little bit. Ultimately, we can see that price has pushed up very nicely at the moment. We still have the ability to push up a little bit more, but I do also see some smaller corrective moves occurring at a smaller time frame level. Ultimately, on the medium term, I am looking for a bigger corrective structure to start to emerge, where we do see corrective price action down towards 30 cents. And from there, I do see us with one hell of a bullish market, taking us up to prices that you guys just will not believe. Check out my previous videos for that. Ultimately, guys, I'm going to leave the video there. If you have found it useful and informative, smash that like button. I do appreciate that. If you are new to the channel, why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all the notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. Until the next one though, guys, have a fantastic day.